It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Mary Jo Foley's here. Kind of our last chance to talk to them in their home bases before they travel off. We're going to talk about some rumors, a little rumor debunking, some good news. Windows 8's coming soon, and a whole lot more. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. It's time for Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 271, recorded July 26th, 2012. That's how they get you. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Ford, featuring the My Ford mobile smartphone app for electric vehicles. The My Ford mobile app makes the electric driving experience fun and efficient. Learn more about Ford electric vehicle technologies at ford.com/technology. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that gives you the latest information about what's going on in the world of Windows, Surface, Zune, Xbox. Here he is, to Zune, Mr. Paul Thurrott, about to leave for France. No, are you going to France?
I am.
Tomorrow. Excellent. Where are you going to be, in Paris?
No, near Rouen.
Oh. That's the beautiful cathedral in Rouen.
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to have a great time.
I hope so. But between now and then, I'm going to be stressed.
Yeah, I know. We'll just make this nice and easy. Short show.
Okay.
You,
doesn't matter.
Short show. You do this every year. And you do a house trade, and you will do the show from Rouen?
Yes.
You have been informed that there is internet in France?
There is internet. We'll see. I can't guarantee it's going to be great, but there is internet.
It'll be a real exciting thing. We have had, it's fun. Mike Elgin joined us on Tuesday. He didn't tell me, but he apparently has moved to Greece. This is the new thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Jo Foley is also here. Thank you for. I apologize. I kind of got distracted of it, and it's good to see you, Mary Jo. Mary Jo, allaboutmicrosoft.com, and she will be on The Verge tonight with Joshua Topolsky. We look forward to watching that. Should be a lot.
Thank you.
So it seems to be, and maybe you two, I don't know, maybe you could be inspired by this, but the thing now, because of the internet and the ability that for writers and bloggers and tech journalists to work anywhere, thanks to the internet, to just kind of skip out. And
I want to do this so badly, but I have children.
Well, Elgin, now see, that's what happened. Elgin and his wife's kids have finally moved out.
Right.
So they have moved to the Peloponnese. They are living in Sparta.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
For a while, for however long they want, and then they're going to go somewhere else. They haven't decided where. And he said, I'm not coming home. We have a house. We're going to keep the house in the Bay Area. Might come home once in a while. But we are
gone,
Gone. And he believes now, it's an interesting experiment. He believes that this will not in any way impact his work, his ability to, his presence in the world. Now, Trey Ratcliffe did the same thing. Our favorite photographer who went to he's living in Queenstown, New Zealand, which literally is the end of the earth. He looks out his window and he sees Antarctica.
Sure.
And I think he also thought he could go there and nothing would change. And I haven't heard a word from him. It's like disappeared.
It was taken by the Zulus.
Yeah. So I think that there is a risk. I think it feels like you could work anywhere, but you can kind of make yourself out of the. So I'm just saying. All I'm saying, Paul, is don't stay in France.
You could work from almost anywhere.
Yeah. Don't stay in France.
I can't. My kids have to go back to school.
Right. Thank God you have young children. Now, Mary Jo is footloose and fancy free. She could just.
I am.
She could just take.
I know.
Where would you live?
Where should I go?
You would live in. I'm guessing Munich.
Munich.
Because of the beer.
You'd be better off in Belgium.
Belgian beer is better, actually. What's your favorite? Yeah. Go ahead. Let's get in trouble.
I know. Let's get in trouble. No, I don't know where I would live. When I moved here to New York 13 years ago, everyone's like, oh, you can't do your job. You can't cover Microsoft from New York. It's impossible. You have to be in Seattle.
Yeah, sure.
Come on. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know where I would go if I could go anywhere.
But you
anywhere.
This is, I guess, the point.
Yeah.
So where did you come from when you moved to New York? Where were you living before?
I was living in Seattle right before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you're living in one of the greatest cities in the world. New York is no slouch.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine living anywhere else.
And you've got free television, entertainment out your window, and I feel like you're a good place to be. There's no motivation to move if you live in New York.
Yeah.
You kind of like.
Although Paul talks up
denim is just like that.
Denim is just like that, only quiet.
What was that?
Yeah,
what
Paul's
am I
talking up. You're talking up
I
denim.
said Paul talks up denim all the time.
Yeah.
It's his hotspot.
Hey, why don't you move to denim?
Hey, we have an Apple store. We're it.
Yeah, you'd love denim. So speaking of Apple, well, it's item number one. I don't know why it's number one on your list, but it is. And people think that the Apple fanboy, am somehow injecting into your mind ideas for which to talk. I do not. I follow a strict guideline provided by Paul and Mary Jo.
His feet are to the fire.
I am like a railroad train on a track. You cannot divert me. Oh, look, squirrel. You cannot divert me from the topic. I had the same reaction you did, though, and I have to. I'll read you the note. Now, did you write this, Paul? It seems like you're. It just seems like you're snark. Yeah.
You can tell who wrote that.
Yeah, there's a little snark here. Apple does it again with Mountain Lion! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, and then yawn. Just kidding. I mean, seriously. And I've been excited. New operating system. That always is like exciting for geeks.
You feel compelled to be excited about it.
It's a revolutionary.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I don't know revolutionary, but it's new. It's a shiny new thing.
But you're right. It's you start playing with it and you go, okay.
It's like
It's maybe there's more under the hood. This is the second time. Maybe. This happened also. I remember when Snow Leopard came out. I said the same thing. And they do this. This is the TikTok. Leopard was big. Snow Leopard was an upgrade over Leopard. Lion was supposedly big, and it was. There were a lot of new things in Lion. And Mountain Lion is just a refinement. And so, okay, I can say,
I just don't. I can't get excited about this. And this is just a random thing.
It's only $20. Let's face it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. Obviously, Microsoft can't do what they're doing with Windows 8 every time. Obviously, and Windows 8 is required because of the way the world's going and the direction Windows was taking before this, and whatever. But like it or hate it, you have to admit Windows 8 is a really big deal.
It's a huge change.
It's not just a big deal for people like me and Mary Jo because we talk about it and write about it and cover this professionally, but it's a big deal for everybody. And it's this thing could crash and burn, I guess, but that's a story too. I mean, it's just a big deal,
right?
So obviously when Apple was doing the first version of OS X, that was a big deal, because that was a big strategy shift and a big change for them. And this is it's in that territory. It's just it's such an about face from what they were doing before. So again, it's without judging it one way or the other, it's just huge. And so Mountain Lion, it's like, okay.
But isn't that a measure? I've been thinking about it because it's funny. I had the same reaction. There's the morning after let down a little bit, like, well,
sure.
And it's pretty much is the same. And I have a MacBook with Red now.
If Microsoft had made Windows 8 without Metro, right?
It would be
just included.
Well, and
it would have been this level of thing.
And that's kind of my point, is that operating systems are mature, and we have said in the past you can't expect big changes, and then lo and behold, here comes Microsoft with Windows 8.
Yeah, well, and they did it before with Office, where you sort of said, look, it's a word processor, it's a spreadsheet. These things are not going to change in major ways.
Is it change for change's sake?
Well, actually, I think that's what's interesting about this, at least, is yes, it is. No, because
I almost did a spit take. I was drinking coffee. Do you mind?
Sorry. No, I don't actually feel that it is for change's sake. I think there's a real. I mean, you could sort of argue about the strategy. We talked about this notion that there were other groups at Microsoft that wanted things to go differently. It could have been more of a Windows Phone kind of a thing, whatever. But
more of a Windows Phone.
Yeah. Yes. And
wow.
I think that
it's quite a bit of one already.
It's changed because this is not what Microsoft does. It's a reaction to what's going to happen. not a reaction to what has happened. They sort of see where the world's going, and they're like, "We got to get on this train now, because if we don't, we're done."
They're going to where the puck. They're skating to where the puck is headed, not where it is.
They're selling 20 million units a month of Windows 7. Right? It's going along, and if they had done Windows 7.5, I think they would have run into problems 3 years down the road.
Right.
You know, and so I give them some credit for that.
I still think they should have done both. I still think they should have done both. Windows 7.5 for the business crowd, and
sure.
Is it unlikely that they'll do that now?
Yeah, because the problem with that is if they had done that, developers never would have done the Metro stuff.
Right.
They would have just given up.
You got to be all in, or nobody's going to.
And I think that's why, you know, we can kind of complain.
Say, let's go over the hill. I'll be right there. I got a few things here to attend. You guys go over the hill now. The other guys come over later, and we'll meet on the other side. And then where are the other guys? You know, they never come. Right.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, it's.
Yeah, we had an interesting discussion on Twitter this morning. A bunch of people who follow Microsoft, and the question we were discussing this morning was, what will be the metric for measurement of success?
I saw
for Windows
that.
8?
I loved that Twitter conversation. I was watching.
Yeah, because that's an interesting question.
And how do we measure it accurately, right? Because they're going to release these sales figures, but the truth is, I think a large percentage of Windows 8, buyers, companies are going to be downgrading to Windows 7. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's going to be a very hard thing to measure. It may, in fact, be impossible to measure that.
Somebody posited in that Twitter conversation that, well, it's pretty straightforward. If it sells better than Windows 7 did, then it's a success. Is that not true?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. I think you have to look at how well it sells on devices, right? How it sells compared to Android tablets and iOS tablets. It's not just, because it's not just a computer anymore. They're selling it in different things. And how do you add these things up? Is Windows RT the same as Windows 8? Does that count as a PC sale? And if it does, how are we going to compare it to the iPad? Because the iPad's not really a PC either. I mean, it's getting complicated. These things used to be very straightforward, right? Linux, Mac, Windows.
Right.
Simple.
Right.
The phones were their own thing. Simple. And they still are, of course. Tablets, it's getting weird, and so I don't think that it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be so difficult, I think, that a year from now, people are going to be able to take the same data and make a case that Windows 8 is either a spectacular failure or a spectacular success, depending on how they choose to look at it.
Yep, agreed. And also, it depends, too, on how Microsoft updates Windows 8 and what they call that update. Because, if they just say Windows 8 Service Pack 1, okay, you add that in with Windows 8. But if they turn Service Pack 1 into something like Windows 9 because they want to show they're iterating more quickly, then, do you add up Windows 8 and Windows 9 and count that as Windows 8? I mean, that's another weird question because we don't really know. Are they going to change the cadence of how quickly they deliver new versions of Windows? Some people have suggested they are, especially with Windows RT. They have to, I think.
I actually, it's funny. You think you have a handle on what they're doing because you look at something like Windows RT and you think, well, they're going to get rid of version numbers now. That Office will be Office, IE will be IE, Windows will be Windows, and then there are little weird things you see, like the version of Office that comes with Windows RT is called Office 2013 Home and Student Preview RT or something. It's got some crazy long name with a version number in it. And it's like, so yeah, it's hard to say. I mean. And talk about messing things up from a, market share, unit sales perspective. Yes, if they call the next update Windows 9, but give it away free to everybody.
Right.
Actually, that's exactly what Microsoft wants, right? Because at that point, you just have to say Windows, and the number for Windows, no matter where it goes, is going to be a big number, and they're going to look great. But there'll always be someone who's going to be able to pick in, or someone who will pick into the numbers and say, actually. If you just look at Windows 8, it's not so good, maybe, or whatever however it works out. It is confusing.
It would be nice if we could all agree on at least some metric, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a plethora of articles over the next 10 months. Windows 8 is a success. Windows 8 is a failure. And a lot of people.
Software is hard. I
guess so.
It's not like buying a car. Microsoft moved to this model year thing, and still does it for a lot of their products. I kind of don't like it. And I like how with the online services they have, there's no such thing as Windows Azure 2012 or Office 365 2013. It's just Office 365. And I think that's the right way to go because, unlike a car, which is a completely different kind of product, you can update the capabilities of this thing and turn it into something new even fairly easily now. So and this goes back to that subscription software model thing where, as part of this deal where you've elected perhaps to get these updates, you just kind of move along with all the updates automatically. And that's neat. But, further skewing this is going to be the group of people who don't want to do that. They just want to buy software the way they've always bought it, and Microsoft will allow that. And what happens with those guys? They're not going to move along, maybe, with everyone else. And, it further kind of muddies the water. But all we have to do is wait for the clarifying remarks from Microsoft. I'm sure they're prepping a blog post right now that will just spell this all out.
I just want to know what John Gruber and MG Siegler think. Because if they here's the metric.
In the Windows world.
Yeah, here's the metric.
Yeah.
If they say it's a hit, then it's a hit.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
There's a good metric. Actually, and I know you kind of ripped him a new one. Gabe Newell of Valve, who was really quite Is he known for being an outspoken fellow? I think he is.
Yep. And actually, to be fair, this comment was just a throwaway line in a big interview.
But it got attention.
Ed Freeze, I think his name was, the guy who used to work on the Xbox team.
Right.
And
what did he say? What did he say? He said that Windows 8 is.
He called it a catastrophe, but not. We got to be careful about what he meant about it too, because what he was talking about was for PC makers. For
OEMs. In fact, he said OEMs are going to defect.
Yeah, I think we need to read into why he said this, and also what he meant by it. I don't think he meant like it's a catastrophe. It's not going to sell very well. I think he meant that Microsoft is taking control of the ecosystem in a way that they didn't before. Windows has always been very friendly to partners, and that maybe PC makers like Steam itself, or Valve, needs to look to a different platform that can be more, agnostic to their partners and so forth.
And let's not forget that Valve is making hardware. We don't know exactly what, but they're getting in the hardware business. So there's something going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
This may be information. This may be part of a larger campaign. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, when you have
him calling out Linux though was kind of like over the top.
We're all moving to Linux.
So we're hedging our bets by moving to Linux. I was like,
2013 is going to be the
they are
Linux.
putting Steam on Linux. I mean, that is putting his money where his mouth is. That's not not.
But then he said the whole reason Windows has succeeded is because of it being a good gaming platform. Okay.
Well, I don't know about that either. That's of course
over
his
exaggeration, perhaps, but yeah.
But certainly gaming has driven Windows in a lot of ways. And what Bill Gates said that back in Windows 95 days, we've got to make it work with games. That's why DirectX exists.
Right. Well, Windows 8 works with games. There's no problem with that. I mean, the problem is now, Microsoft has had a very weak version of the Xbox Live on Windows for years, and now they're bringing the full Xbox Live to Windows. They're going to have, the store integration built into Windows. And I think that's really what he's responding to. It's like, you're doing what I do, but you're building it into Windows. Screw you. I mean, I think that's kind of the impetus behind the comments. My issue with this guy is he's like, you were joking around in the beginning about, look, a squirrel. That's what Valve is, right? Yeah. Valve is like Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2. Oh, Left 4 Dead. And then they go flying off in the corner. Like,
that's the game business. And that's not totally his fault.
But they just forget. They did like a. It took them forever to make Half-Life 2, and they said, well, we're never going to make that mistake again. Now we're going to do episodic games. We're going to have like a 3-part series. We're going to follow up Half-Life 2. And then they delivered part 1, and then a couple of years later they delivered part 2. And by the way, now it's been 5 years. So they never finished the story. It's like this guy's complaining about Microsoft. At least Microsoft's delivering. I mean, I just find that to be kind of shabby because, before I switched to the Xbox 360 for gaming, obviously I was a PC gamer, and I am still a big fan of Valve and what they do, and of their service Steam, which is excellent, for what it is. But I think these issues are it's just him lashing out at Microsoft because they're kind of taking this away from him as he sees it, I bet, on the PC platform, which of course they are.
But unfortunately, the way this showed up on every website I looked at was head of Valve says Windows 8 a catastrophe.
Right. That's the way it's reported. Even though,
welcome to Soundbite City.
I know. It is, but then like it's not exactly what he said at all. In fact,
right.
I mean, he's
talking. Well, Al Gore didn't say he invented the internet either. This is a long-standing tradition in journalism.
It's true. It's true. I guess I'm just sensitive to this week because there've been so many weird rumors that were all discredited about Microsoft, which we'll talk about later.
Oh yeah.
There's a bunch of them this week.
Yeah.
So, but as far as this stuff goes, this interview is actually interesting. It's worth going and reading, because he talks about a lot of interesting stuff that has nothing to do with his opinion of Windows 8. He talks about, I think he called it like the post-touch world. He said that keyboards and mice as an interface type lasted for about 2 decades. It worked great. He thinks that touch is going to be less long-lasted, and that he didn't call it this, but basically after that we move on to what I would call natural user interfaces, sure, the gesturing.
He's talking about wristbands.
Yeah.
But the truth is, and I don't know if let's point this out. If touch becomes the predominant gaming platform, all games need to be rethought. A lot of people think you could just port first-person shooters to tablets, and I'm here to tell you they suck on tablets. Moving your finger, they're not as good.
So by the way, I agree with you 100%.
You should write the game natively for the interface.
But the thing is, I went through this before. When I moved to the PC as a gaming platform, I was just like keyboards. And
but you learned to love them, didn't you?
No, but in non-true 3D games like Doom or Return of Castle Wolfenstein or whatever, where you're running basically in kind of
it's a Rails.
It's a first-person thing, but there's no free look. You're just going straight. Right. That's it. Keyboard works great. Once you get into Quake and games like that where it's actual 3D and you have the free look kind of capabilities, you need a mouse. And the transition from just a keyboard to keyboard and mouse was very, very difficult. But what would happen is you'd go into these games and you would get owned by people who were using a mouse because they could be so much more precise than you could be. And you basically had to kind of force yourself into doing that. And so the argument against the controller on an Xbox or whatever was, and probably still is for these people, that it's not precise. That you can't do the same thing you can do with the mouse and keyboard. But actually, as it turns out, I've been playing first-person shooters on the 360 since the 360 came out.
They're great.
They work great.
Nobody would debate that now, anyway.
So I wonder if there's not going to be something, that will make this okay on tablets. And if that doesn't happen, it kind of supports what he's saying, which is that eventually we're going to have to move beyond this, because it's good for some things, of course, but it's not good for all things.
Yeah.
Whereas I think mouse and keyboard, for whatever reason, not just as a game control mechanism, but just as a general purpose interface for a computing device, has proven itself to be pretty durable, long lasting. Touch, I guess we'll see. Yeah, we don't know yet.
Yeah, I think that the iPad's a great gaming platform, but I just think you have to design games for the iPad.
Certain kinds of games, yes.
Yeah,
right. And the types of games you would never have seen otherwise, right?
Exactly.
Like Temple Run would never have existed.
I know, and Temple Run's
or Angry Birds or
Angry Birds. They're great games. Yeah. They're touch games. They're not, in fact, they're trying to port them back to the PC and stuff. I don't think it's as good. They're touch games.
They're just, they never would have existed if those interfaces didn't exist first. Yeah.
So I guess my point is, well, from Gabe's point of view, it's probably a good thing. It just means more opportunities for more games.
Which is not necessarily what he's looking for.
I don't know what he's looking for.
Well, I'm sure what he's looking for is for Steam to be the gaming service, which is probably, I don't know.
And he's put it on Mac, he's put it on Windows, he's put it on Linux. So I'm curious if they're going to do Steam for tablets. That'll be an interesting.
It sounds, but when you do something like that, so you port your games to all these different platforms, is he creating something that is essentially like the Java of gaming, where it's like this?
No, because they're native games. He's just providing a delivery service.
Okay.
So it's not write once, play everywhere at all.
Sure.
I don't think, unless I'm completely mistaken, it's just a delivery service. But the advantage is you can create a Steam account on any platform. You can go to another platform, another machine. You know this, Paul. I don't log in and there's your games. And
he's also fighting services like OnLive, right? Which is essentially write once, because you're only there's only one platform there, and the PC or the web browser or the device or whatever you're using is kind of just the endpoint. It's almost like a terminal services.
Vizio's $99 Apple TV killer that they're putting out that's based on Google TV has OnLive in it.
Yeah, there you go.
Which means you'll be able to, on your big screen TV with a $99 device, be able to play all these PC games.
You're going to need a good connection.
Yeah, well, you're right.
But yeah. Sure.
So Windows 8 is how close? This close? This close?
We were pretty sure.
This close.
It was like yesterday. I was positive it was going to happen yesterday.
Me too. I was so sure yesterday because I'm like, wow, this would be perfect. Apple rolls out Mountain Lion. Microsoft announces like Windows 8 RTM. But no.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Hey, we got one of them.
I've heard from multiple people, though, that this thing it's in the can. It's just, the end of last week, they spent a bunch of time just debating, the build number, and because they always do that artificial bump with the build number.
We talked about that last week. Have they settled on 8888?
No, that's been the assumption, but I'm curious. So what's this other number you have? Where
There's a new build that people are talking about over in Windows Unleaked TK, 9200. It seems to be a real build.
What?
I've not heard of that.
What?
Maybe that's the next one. That's going to be the...
It's Windows 9.
It's Windows 8. 9. Yeah, a lot of people were like, oh, that's Windows 9. But they said, no, it's a Windows 8 build.
Now, why would they bump it to 9 too, though?
Because it's Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because it makes no
close.
sense.
So
the same reason they call this the 8th version of Windows. Because it makes no sense.
Because it's version 6.2? Oh, Microsoft.
What could their...
Yeah.
No.
Not that it matters. Who the hell cares what the build number is? But still, it's a fun geek game. So the bits are almost ready. The bits are almost there.
Oh, yeah.
Does it mean anything, though, when they say, okay, RTM? What does that mean exactly?
So, for most people, it doesn't mean a lot. It means, okay, this is done. We're giving the disk now, the master image, to the OEMs who are going to put it on new PCs. But what's a little different these days is business users are going to get it a lot sooner than October 26th, which is the big launch date. So business users probably like the first week of August are going to get the bits. And MSD and TechNet, I keep hearing like August 1st around
So
then.
really, nowadays, that's the effective release date of Windows almost. I mean, you can't buy a SKU in the store, but people don't get Windows that way. A lot of people don't get Windows that way anyway.
I bet the people who buy Windows in a box in a store are going to be such a tiny minority this time.
They don't count.
I mean, even if you want the software, just the software, you're going to get it electronically. Right. Why wouldn't you? You'll get like a product key and a card maybe in a store, or just go get it from MicrosoftStore.com.
So that's my question. So in effect, nowadays, RTM is in many ways practically the release of Windows 8.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah. Depending on what you're looking for. I mean, obviously, the majority of people that want Windows 8 are going to want a new device, especially this time. We always kind of say that, that the best experience is with the new hardware, but this time it's got to be true because they're going to be new tablets.
Should they hold out for touch
devices.
hardware? Should people want touch hardware?
I get this question every single day.
Good. I'm glad I can add to your burden.
And I hate people that ask me. No. It's you can't answer. Yes.
Watch out! The sword is out.
I can't answer that for someone else. I mean, I think for myself, my intention is I will get some form of touch-based device, like a tablet.
Can I answer? Having used now Windows 8 on a mouse and a big screen and a touch device, it's so much better on a touch device. I think some sort of touch is really nice if you can have it.
Yep.
It depends on what you're doing. I think for the type of thing that I do for work, I just write. I mean, honestly, a regular laptop works fine, or a regular computer, and I'll never use the Metro stuff. It
doesn't feel natural.
Well, no, it's the way I use it. It's just like
because you stay in desktop.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
But you can't really stay in desktop. I mean, you're always going to get that start screen.
Well, right.
And if you're going to stay in desktop, why do you want Windows 8?
Yeah. Just keep Windows 7.
I'll tell you, Mary Jo.
Okay,
I'll be back. Go ahead. You two fight it out.
No, I actually, for whatever it's worth, I do think that the desktop environment in Windows 8 is actually more attractive. And so and especially as these other apps move to this new flatter UI, like we're seeing in Office, and you're going to see across other apps, that it makes for more of a consistent kind of look. But there are capabilities in Windows 8 that I actually do use that are important that you can't get in Windows 7, like storage spaces or file history, the ability to blow away your computer and come back very quickly within 10 or 15 minutes. is kind of a huge deal. I mean, I as someone who tests software, I blow away my install of Windows all the time. And that's something that takes minutes on Windows 8, and it's like half a day on Windows 7. You know, it's a completely different experience. So, why would a writer want the next version of Word, even though there's only one or two things maybe that impact them? Because sometimes those things can be important. You know, it's not night and day when you're just using the desktop, of course. But I do find it to be better, and I'm using Windows 7 today, and it's
even with that. So you're saying it's okay with a keyboard and mouse?
Sure.
Well, certainly there'll be a lot of companies selling hardware that doesn't have touch capability. I feel like I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a compromise because now you're talking a convertible laptop, right? I mean, and nobody's going to buy a desktop with touch.
Well, except they did a nice demo of that where
What about,
that screen kind of comes down, because the big argument against touch on a desktop is you're not going to hold your arm out there.
Right.
But what if the screen came down at a 15-degree angle and you could kind of rest your hands on it and manipulate it like a drafting board or something? Oh, well, okay, but no.
Wait a minute. So you're saying, I didn't see this demo. I reach out and the machine goes. No,
it's on a swivel thing.
Oh, you do it.
Okay.
Well, like this. Yeah, I have mine. Mine is on a swivel like that, an ergotron arm, and I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, then it gets all whopper-jawed. I gotta push it out of the way and all that. So, what about? Okay, I got a brilliant idea then.
Mm-hmm.
What about Connect Pro or this new Leap thing? What if we have a gestures based Minority Report style for desktops? Is that do you think any hardware manufacturer will offer something like that in the fall?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think that would require Microsoft to explicitly.
Oh, that's not okay. Okay.
That's Windows 9, Leo. You know.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about that's how Apple solved it, is with the Magic Trackpad with a gesture device that you
are going to see that too.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just saying that from my experience, while you can of course do everything that you want to do in Windows 8 with a keyboard and mouse, it's a touch interface. It's designed to be used. You know, those charms, it's just a little ungainly to hover.
Click on the desktop, and it's designed to be used with a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, but
it's fine.
Because that's how you're going to use it.
There was a weird moment. I've been going over their old videos and writing about, the milestones as we get to RTM. And for the consumer preview, not Tammy Reller, Julie Larson-Greed made an odd comment. She was trying to do all the touch interfaces and show how they were all, fast and fluid is the way they describe them. And she was talking about task switching. Anyone who uses Windows knows that you can do Alt-Tab to switch between running applications in Windows. And, of course, that works in Windows 8. But they have these other touch interfaces that, work with multi-touch. And so she described Alt-Tab as fast but not fluid. Right? There's something to contemplate for a little while.
But not
she said,
fluid.
Yeah, and in other words, but flicking the screen to move from app to app was
fast
both
and fluid.
Fast and fluid.
Yes, and I would agree.
You would agree, okay.
I know what she's saying. Well, what she's saying is just it's more native. It feels right. It just feels a little ungainly. Now, of course, you've been using this for a lot longer than anybody else has, and so maybe your experience will be the general experience, which is we'll all go, oh yeah, after in a couple months, oh yeah, it's great with a mouse and keyboard.
Sure.
But right now, for me, and I gather Mary Jo, it doesn't quite. It feels like you want to touch it.
It's going to take some time. But that's one mark of how it's a big deal.
But and the other thing is, I have to point out, you're not using Metro apps. But that's what Windows 8 is. I mean, you're saying, oh, it's great as long as you don't use the Windows Cocktail Flow. You love Cocktail Flow. That is a touch app.
No. Here's something to consider when it comes to that kind of thing. This Metro design language, right? This style of app is a UI type that we're going to start seeing everywhere, right? And there's a weird thing. We're in a transition period. So even on the desktop, there are going to be Metro-like apps, like the Office apps. There are going to be in Visual Studio even. There are going to be Metro experiences on the web. I suspect that if you go to Microsoft's website, Microsoft.com, 6 months from now, it will look nothing like the way it looks now, and it will look like Metro. It'll be big squares and tiles and whatever. And this is going to be an interface type that we're going to get very used to.
Right. Because
it's
I
just
grant
going
you
to be
that.
everywhere.
We just have to, yeah.
So I don't think it's hard to imagine web apps in particular that mimic the look of Metro apps, but because they're running in the web, they can run in Windows.
Yeah.
And not full screen, and that they become more efficient for people who are on a keyboard and a mouse. You know, and so I would give it time. I mean, the Windows 8 Metro apps are designed for a very specific thing, which is full screen, which is going to be mostly smaller devices that you hold in your hand, not these big screens like we have on big tower PCs. So I think it's going to support all this stuff. But I think you're going to see more options on the desktop side than right now, because we're focusing on the new stuff, but the other things are going to change too, and I think it's all going to get there from a design perspective.
Okay. The big announcement I'm most excited about is that there is. What are you laughing at?
I don't know.
Is that there's going to be a Build Blogger Bash 2.0. To me, who cares about RTM Windows 8? It's the Build Blogger Bash that bings my bell.
Mary Jo and I are going to be like planes, trains, and automobiles the week of Build.
So what happens? So Bill, they do two conferences at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul and I have been discussing how to clone ourselves. I think there's hope, maybe.
So this is Build 2012.
Right. Build 2012, we found out this week, is going to be the last week of October, going into the beginning of November. It's going to be in Redmond, which is interesting.
Fun.
Just like the PDC 2010 was.
Could be
so
worse.
It's going to be on campus.
Could be in Tacoma.
I guess it's still going to be. It's going to be a huge event, though. Apparently, I'm curious to see how they do that.
I like that response. No. Tacoma is the Dedham of the Pacific Northwest.
No, that's not fair.
No.
Tacoma is the Needham of the.
You're right, of course. I confuse sometimes Needham and Dedham, and I don't know why. You're right, of course. Yes.
I don't even know what that means, actually. It's the Tucumcari.
Yeah, so there's going to be a build. Yay, which we kind of knew. But.
And it should be after Windows 8 is, fully deployed and out and everything. That makes perfect sense. Build is, for those who haven't been listening, what?
It's the replacement for Mix and PDC and WinHex. So it's like Microsoft's mega developer conference.
It's like they took all their conferences and blended them in the blender.
I'm so happy they're doing this. I really feel like this is necessary, and that and again, looking at the videos of these past Microsoft events, one of the many things that struck me about these events is how every time they present Windows 8 to an audience, they're starting over. There's this assumption that no one is actually paying attention.
Yeah, they did that at the last event, right?
I actually think this is correct, by the way, to do this, because I really feel like people, last October, I guess, what was built last October, everyone got really excited about Windows 8 briefly, used the developer preview and said, okay, I'll wait for the consumer preview,
Right.
And then the consumer preview came around, we got all excited about it again, and like the apps were there, but they're only app previews. We'll see what it looks like when And then the release preview, okay, this is like feature complete. But I think for developers in particular, obviously they want to get them excited about this. But I mean, I think to date it's been, and I hope I'm wrong. I mean, but it doesn't seem like it's been a huge success with the developers yet. And I just think they need to educate them about what's going on. This is so necessary.
I agree. This is a huge.
Plus, they're going to bring in other stuff, right? Windows Phone, Azure. I don't remember the full list, but it's not just Windows 8. It's the whole, Microsoft.
So what's the other event?
Stack. Mm-hmm. So Mary Jo and I are going to be appearing at Windows Connections,
is that a Penton Media thing, or?
Yeah, Penton's associated with it. It's. I guess it's Penton. Is it just Penton? I don't know. So it's connections. So there's like Dev Connections. There's all these, Windows Connections is the part we're associated with. But these things are overlapping, So I contacted the folks at Connections to say, look, we'd like to make sure our stuff is at the back end of it so we can go to Build and then go to Connections from there. So.
Because Connections is in Vegas, so.
Right. It's easy. It's easy to get from Tacoma to Vegas.
It's not Tacoma, Leo.
They call it SeaTac.
That's true.
Hey, have you seen the new Microsoft.com? They totally went Metro on us.
See?
See, they're all in. If you like Metro, you'll love it. It's got the thingies and the thingies and the. In fact, I feel like I want to touch it. You can't though. And look, Skype's right on the front page along with.
Would you call it fast and fluid, Leo?
This is fast and fluid. This is very well, you know. And what's interesting, I guess this is still Metro-ish. You go to the Windows 8 page, and it's a little less Metro-y.
Yeah,
but
I think this whole thing is going to transition. I think they
want this. This is going to be the new look everywhere. I'm telling you, I believe it or not, I think that to get people excited about Windows 8, put a tablet in their hands or put a touch device in their hands, and they're going to get more excited. And otherwise, they're going to say, "Well, it's like you took my Windows and made it a little harder to use for no apparent reason." And that's my feeling. I want to have a touch device. I'm not 100%.
I'm not 100% sure this is true, but I guess playing devil's advocate, you know, there's this notion that, you know, a WinRT tablet could be just like an iPad, except that for those couple of moments where you want to do something a little more complex, you could plug in a USB thumb drive or, you know, do whatever and type an Office document, and it's like a computer, you know. And on the flip side, you could have your real computer, like the one I have here in front of me, where it's this big screen, keyboard, mouse. You're in productivity apps all day long. But every once in a while, you want to throw a movie on or listen to some music while you're writing, and that kind of Metro thing is sitting there in the background, and it works fine. And I think the success of Windows 8 is going to be based on whether what I just said is true, that this makes sense to people, that these things should be done by one device, not by multiple devices.
This is why we need the Surface, Microsoft Surface.
Well, and then, of course, and it's not on your list, but there's the story that Microsoft's telling some OEMs like Dell, no RT for you. They told HTC that. And now, apparently, according to this is a story from Engadget a couple of days ago, if your name's not on the list, you're not making a tablet.
Right.
Is that accurate?
And, you know, I don't think we know for sure if this is accurate, but it makes sense in a way, because there were stories like a couple months ago saying Microsoft was limiting each of the processor combinations to one or two OEMs.
Right.
And I think it's just to make sure this works before they open it up to any OEM and say, okay, want to build a Windows RT tablet? Go ahead.
But you would think that their big partners like Dell, they would say go ahead. I mean, Dell, I mean...
No, I really... There's a lot
riding
on this.
You're going to say yes to Pantech, but no to Dell? I don't understand.
Well, I don't know about Pantech, but if they somehow get how these devices can be made efficiently and run for hours on battery and all that kind of stuff, maybe. I mean, I think what they're looking for is a consistent experience and an Apple-like experience where they can ensure that the OEMs aren't going to do to RT what they did to Windows. You know, that the double-edged sword of the partner thing has always been that sell a lot of PCs, but they put all this crap on it, and they want
everything to be the Microsoft signature experience out of the box.
Yeah, and with RT they can control it. You know, this is and I really feel like it's, you know, again, I talk about things that, you know, how will we measure whether it's successful? Here's an interesting one. What if Windows RT outsells Windows 8? Right?
Yeah.
That would be how you would measure how successful it was, because that's a huge win for Microsoft, because it erases all of that backwards crap that's kind of ruining Windows from within. You know, and there's a little potential milestone to look for, I guess.
I guess it's not too surprising if...
No, because HP was the other one supposedly we talked about, you know, where they cut from the list, or did they get off the list themselves, you know? And
well, that's what some are saying, like Dell didn't want to be on the list.
Right, and so we don't know, did HP want to be on the list and they dropped it, or did Microsoft say to HP, you know what, we don't like the tablets you're building, and so you're not on the short list. Right. We don't know.
Yeah, remember that time that we promoted your tablet at CES?
And you never made it.
Yeah.
We're not doing that anymore. We remember it too. And you're not doing it. Please, make another atom-based tablet. That would be hilarious.
Not going to happen again. Not going to happen again. Anyway, I threw that in. That wasn't on your list. I apologize. See, Leo does have an agenda.
You're off the rails.
I'm off the rails. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Surface prices. Are they twice as much as everybody thought they'd be? No.
I hope so.
You'll explain. But first, a word from Ferd. I should not have rhymed that. Ford Motor Company, my friends, the folks who do the amazing electric Focus, the 2012 Focus, out now and just sweet as heck. Sweet as butter. It's both, what was it, fast and fluid. And burns no fossil fuels, no CO2 emissions, and it's a platform. And I love this idea. I want you to go to Ford.com/technology and take a look at the amazing stuff Ford is doing with its vehicles. They really see the vehicles as a platform for developers. In fact, they even have an API, they call it Ford App Link, that lets developers write apps for smartphones that then interface with the car's computer so you can have Ford Sync and other features. Ford is a 21st century car company that understands that, you know, people are bringing into the car the latest, greatest technology, so why not take advantage of it? The Ford Focus Electric is the most fuel-efficient 5-passenger vehicle in America. You can get a federal tax credit of up to $7,500, which makes it very affordable. You'll save money on gas, and it's the fastest charging. And bring your phone, because if you have an Android, an iPhone, or a BlackBerry, you can run the My Ford mobile app, give you a chance to interact with your car. So you're sitting in the living room, car's sitting in the garage. You press a button, tell the car, don't charge until it's off-peak hours because we want to save the most money. Or, hey, I'm going to be in the car at 8 tomorrow morning. Make sure it's 72 degrees in the cabin so I'm comfy when I drive out of here. And while it's on the power, it'll do the heating or the cooling. You could find out where the car is right now if you lost it and where the nearest charging stations are. You could also find out how much you've saved in CO2 and dollars. There's even a My Ford mobile website with leaderboards so you can compete against others to be the most eco-friendly. Just one of the great ways Ford is using the platform of its vehicles and giving developers a chance to do something truly amazing. Visit the EV-certified Ford dealer near you today and take a drive in the incredible 2012 Ford Focus. And bring your smartphone so you can test drive the My Ford mobile app too. Find out more at Ford.com/technology. Or, as I said, at your friendly Ford dealer. Leo Laporte here with Paul Thurrott of the SuperSite for Windows, WinSuperSite.com, the author of Windows Phone Secrets and soon-to-be-released Windows 8 Secrets. Mary Jo Foley from All About Microsoft. And one of our hosts on This Week in Enterprise Tech every Monday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on TWiT.tv. So, what was it? I was thinking of something. Oh, the book. Paul, if they RTM Windows 8, when does the book come out? Are you going to still hold out for October, or we could use it now? Hint, hint.
Yeah, it's probably, I would imagine it's going to be closer to September. So we will compare, we'll look at the RTM, make sure we didn't miss something, they screwed something.
Oh, I guess you have to do that, yeah.
Do what they do to us, but right. And then we'll sign off on it. So like right now we actually have the final pages, and we can make changes against those if we have to, but the goal now is to hopefully not have to do that. So as soon as we see RTM, we can, send it off to the printer press or whatever.
Yeah.
Make a book.
Jimmy Fallon in our chat room asks, he's a big geek. What about the help section? Nobody's seen the help yet.
In Windows 8, yeah.
Is that true, really?
It was woefully incomplete in the release preview.
Interesting. Yeah. So presumably they're working on that.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, it's, yeah.
Amazon is apparently telling Ron H. in our chat room that estimated ship date for Windows 8, August 24th.
For the book?
No. Oh, maybe it is the book. Ron, is that the book or is that Windows 8? See, the inevitable confusion.
I mean, Amazon just puts in placeholder
right.
dates.
They make that stuff up. The book.
I get all these emails from people say, I pre-ordered your book, and it keeps getting delayed. Because Amazon will update the...
Yeah.
And it's not delayed. It's just, obviously we have to map it to when Windows 8 ships.
Oh, okay. Okay. Never mind. Never mind. I forget I said anything. Let me go back to OneNote MX and find out what's next. Rumor roundup. Surface prices revealed. Or maybe not.
We missed one.
Wait a minute. We missed one? Windows Phone 8 SDK leaks? Oh, we can't miss that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Tell me about it, Paul Thurrott.
This is a bad time for this to happen because I'm so, messed up because I'm going away. But the SDK
they
for
timed
Windows
it
Phone
for
8.
that. They said Paul's leaving for France.
Well, it's a leak. I don't know that they timed it, but somebody leaked the Windows Phone 8 SDK, which, of course, provides you with a lot of information, right? We know that the Windows Phone is going to use a WinRT-based API, and so we can actually see the APIs and see actual capabilities. We can run the emulator, and we can see some of the built-in apps because they're in there, and see some of the changes and all that kind of stuff. Some interesting details. I mean, most of it is just stuff we already knew, but now you kind of get your hands on it virtually anyway. The developer environment is obviously Visual Studio. It requires Windows 8 64-bit edition because it requires Hyper-V. You need Hyper-V to run the emulator now. So that's interesting. But, I don't have a lot of time to look at it yet. That's the problem. So I kind of flipped through the emulator very quickly. They have all the different, screen resolution sizes that Windows Phone 8 supports, including, 720p and I think it's 1280 by 768, and then the old res of 800 by 480. So that stuff is all in there. You can test your app at all the different resolutions and everything. But it looks, if you're familiar with the way the Windows 8 stuff looks, it looks a lot like that. Basically, it's not surprisingly, it looks a lot like that. So
you found some couple new things though, like this Data Smart thing that's now called DataSense. Like they actually haven't publicly acknowledged that exists.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
You know that?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Because I wrote
Paul
about that.
puts up a screenshot of this, and it's like they haven't said this feature exists, but there it is.
Sorry. Yeah. So I wrote about Data Smart, some time ago. I mean,
right.
They didn't talk about that, right? Is that right? So
what is
Data Smart? It's a couple of things, but it's an app for one thing, but it's also part of the underlying platform. And it's basically the Windows Phone version of the mobile broadband support in Windows 8, where you can go in and configure. You have a metered account. So in other words, you go to AT&T and you say, I have a 5 gig account that can do tethering, that kind of thing. You can configure the app to know that, and so it will keep you up to date with how you're doing on data. And it will obviously, intelligently, switch over to Wi-Fi when it can. It has a Wi-Fi kind of a sensor built in where it can recommend Wi-Fi to you when you're running a little close to your limit. It has a live tile aspect to it, so you can get, updates on your data usage right on the home screen there. So, it's kind of an obvious thing you would have on it because by its nature, a smartphone, most people who get a phone now, everyone who buys Windows Phone 8, well, that's not true. Almost everyone who buys Windows Phone 8 will have a metered account of some kind, right? Not an unlimited account like we used to be able to get. And so it's kind of an important part of it.
Yeah. I got a lot of people saying to me, so, okay, this is the preview SDK that leaked. Where is the SDK, right? When is it coming? And Microsoft said this summer, but I guess they told some people privately July. So we've got 5 more days if they're hitting the July target for the actual official preview.
Maybe this was literally the official one and it leaked a little early,
Yeah, could be. Because the rumored RTM date for Windows Phone 8 operating system is September. So they really need to get the SDK out there pretty soon for people who want to build Windows Phone 8 specific apps that take advantage of things like multi-core and a lot of the new features that are being added.
It's really not a lot of time,
It's not a lot of time. No.
It really isn't. I mean, and it's not just, what you just said is, of course, very important, but also, imagine all the people who created apps for Windows Phone already. They can update them so they run a little bit better on Windows 8. I mean, just using the existing APIs. But if you wanted to actually update your app, an existing app, and port it over to WinRT, that's actually a fairly big project. I mean, and it's not a lot of time. I mean, we're probably not going to see a lot of that immediately just because of the short period of time between whenever this release is of the beta SDK and the final release of the phone. I mean, it's just a couple of months. It's happening very quickly.
Yeah. I wonder how big a project it is, because if it is a really huge undertaking, that means when Windows Phone 8 launches, there aren't going to be a lot of apps available for it, right? If it's really hard to get your app over. I think they've been making the case it's not a giant undertaking, but that depends on the kind of app, right?
Depends on what it is. I mean, yeah. Right. And plus, why would you bother, right? So I think for a lot of apps, if you could, if they make one up, but like whatever app, you could make an app that works on Windows Phone 8 only, Or you could make a Win 7X app that runs on everything. And so I think right away what you're going to see is that. I mean, people are just going to, why would they bother? They may kind of have that on the back burner, like a Win Phone 8 version. And maybe they're going to look at the APIs just to see what advantages there are to doing that. But, short term, I mean, it makes more sense to make a 7X app because it will just run on all the phones, not just on 8.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also, for developers who are listening, LiveSide found a really cool chart that they put up. It's a chart, I guess it's in the documentation on the Sleeked SDK, and it shows you all the APIs that are in Windows 8 and then Windows Phone 8 and how much overlap there is in them and what's different. Right. It's a pretty good chart if you're somebody wondering, is this API going to be in there? Is this one not? What gets added to Windows Phone 8 that's not in Windows 8? Is it fair
to say that some of the APIs are similar but have arbitrarily different names?
And some of them are only subsets, yes.
Yeah, that's how I kind of imagine it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Some are subsets of the full API. There's some that are COM APIs that aren't even Windows RT APIs. Yeah, it's a good chart if you want to really confuse yourself. It's awesome.
Yeah, this happening next week would have been way better for me. But
why don't they consider you, Paul? It just makes me mad.
Yeah.
Send a note to the leakers.
Well, I want to spend time on this. Is something I want to spend time on. I'm very, very interested in Windows Phone 8, and so I will be reading through all this stuff. I do want to, I want to see what's going on there.
Your point's well taken. That if this is for developers, they're not giving them a lot of time to write their apps.
No, they're really not. I mean, I would assume that Tier 1 developers have access to this, and thus the
Is it really different? Is it really different?
It's really different.
Really different. Okay, so you have to start over.
Well, Win Phone 7, right? Silverlight API is very simple.
Right.
And game makers could use XNA. And then in 7.5, they added a kind of a weird hybrid approach where you could have Silverlight and XNA mixed in the same thing. And so when we move to Windows Phone 8, what you see is DirectX for games, which is the way we do it on Windows. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I actually think the game thing is going to be the easiest porting that you're going to see it all for everything, because Windows 8 games and Windows Phone games are going to be very, very close, very close.
Right.
Basically, just screen resolution issues, assuming they're touch based. But the big change is going to be on just like the application development side, because you're going from Silverlight to WinRT. And so I can't remember off the top of my head, I don't have it. I'm in Windows 7 now, but I would imagine that, they had VB and Win Phone 7. So you have your choice of languages like you did with Silverlight, but the APIs are going to be different. And Mary Jo was talking about a table I haven't looked at yet, but that does some mapping. I assume the table is between Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8, right? Because the version of the WinRT APIs that are in Windows Phone are not identical to what's in Windows 8. They're similar.
Right. And there's mentions of Windows RT, I think, or maybe I'm confusing it with WinRT. But yeah, it is it says Windows 8, Windows Phone 8 at the top of the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a tough thing. It would be nice if ideally the way this would work is these would all have the same APIs, and there would be like these superset APIs where maybe Windows Phone was the bottom of the barrel, Windows RT sat on top of that, and then if there were things unique to Windows 8 on top of that, perhaps something like that, where they could build off of each other. But unfortunately, I think these things were developed simultaneously, maybe, and they're not always going to be the same. And I think we're going to see interesting namespace things where there are going to be APIs that do essentially the same thing but have different names, different method call names, and it's going to be a little confusing. That's all. So, it's a transition, but. Again, I haven't had a lot of chance to look at the documentation yet. So, because I'm leaving. Why did it happen today?
Now they had to do it now.
Yesterday would have been okay.
So
Monday would have been great.
Swedish website webhallen.com says the Surface will be $1,000 at the cheapest. That's the Windows RT version.
These
are lies. These are all lies.
There's no. I mean, without knowing that is not true. There's no way that's true.
I hope it's not true, because that's a non-starting price. It's not true. It's the site.
They even admitted it today. Did you guys see this?
Yeah, the site said it's a placeholder, right, or something like that.
Yeah, they actually said Microsoft didn't give us any of this data. We kind of just made this up.
We said it would be worth this. That's what we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was interesting they said the reason they did this was because they have a lot of customers who are willing to do a pre-order even at a high price.
Oh, so they thought, well, if they're stupid enough to want it for 1,129 kroner, I'm sorry, 6,990 kroner, we'll sell it to them.
So they can get pre-order, but they can't sell it.
No. Then what happens is they say, oh, good news. It's only 3,475 kroner.
What are they going to, like, they're going to buy them from the Microsoft store and then resell them to people? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, that is what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do.
Oh, this isn't an official.
No, because
maybe they will get that. Maybe they will do that amount.
Right, because all Microsoft has said, if you really go back and look, is the places you can buy Surface are the Microsoft stores, the physical stores, which there's like 24 of in the world, mostly all in the U.S. I think all in the U.S. right now. Or
there's one in Canada
certain.
soon.
Is there yet? Is that one open?
Soon.
Soon, any day. Toronto.
But
right?
The other place is Microsoft.com. Only select stores through Microsoft.com. So nobody, as far as we know, like Amazon or this retailer or anyone else, is going to be able to actually just ship it out. They're going to have to go buy it from Microsoft, either Microsoft.com or a store, and then resell it.
Man.
Well, ironically, that's what Microsoft does with Microsoft Signature. So I guess it's okay. Maybe they could buy it, load a bunch of crapware on it, and then sell it for more.
We're in OEM. That's what you do.
That's what Dell will do.
Yeah. We're not going to make them. We'll just crap them. We'll crap them up. That's our job. Sure. Other rumors. Skype. Is Microsoft really listening to my Skype calls, Mary Jo?
They might be listening to yours, but I don't think they're listening to anyone else's.
We're on a Skype call right now, and I know they're listening to this one.
They are.
Are you now, or how are you? Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Yeah. So, what's the story with this? This is a phony, another phony rumor, right?
Another one that was kind of like, oh boy, it sounded good at the time, right?
I think Skype's encrypted, isn't it? Of course, I guess Microsoft now has
love
the keys.
Stories like this. Did you know there's a backdoor in Windows NT?
Right,
that
right. The NSA
allows the government officials to come in and
it's not it's a perfect story because you can't prove the negative.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is because Microsoft can't deny it per se, right? But if you go in and look at terms of service for Skype, you can see what happens. Somebody went in and kind of cherry picked sentences out of the terms of service and it made it sound like they're keeping all your data, they're listening to your calls, they're monitoring you. And when you go back and look at the full terms of service, you see, they are keeping some of your data because they're helping put back the IM conversations from history. That's one thing. Right. So
that sounds helpfully. That can't be why they're doing it.
No, that can't be why they're doing it. Right. No, but I think what got people really all keyed up about this was, Skype they've been changing the back end infrastructure of Skype. Microsoft has acknowledged, yes, they have been changing it, because it's a peer-to-peer based infrastructure right now, and they're doing things to that.
They turned off supernoting, which I'm very happy about. Yeah. Right.
So they're not saying why they did things or what they're doing differently. They won't go into detail about that, not surprisingly. But so people are, drawing connections between, if you read the terms of service and you know they're changing things, this is why they're doing it, so they can snoop on your calls. This is why. Yep. There you
awesome.
go.
That's
who
awesome.
cares if they snoop on your calls anyway?
Seriously, it would be entertaining and educational for somebody to spend an afternoon listening to Raphael and I talking on Skype, because it basically involves lots of animal sounds and it's nothing that anyone would ever want to listen to. So we're going to turn it into a podcast. No, but I just don't.
Seriously,
this is
who cares?
It's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's just so. It's so silly.
Yeah.
But people believe this stuff so easily,
And that they care so much. I sometimes I think the privacy thing. Well, I mean, I guess we ought to know. But, when you're on your phone, people can listen into that.
Yeah. Do you even, a legitimate wiretap, right, for a real reason? Do you have any idea how boring that is, really?
Oh, can you imagine?
Can you imagine? No, seriously, could you imagine?
Your boss could be listening to you on every call you make at work.
I hope
without a wiretap.
I hope that's how they spend their time. That would just be such an epic waste of time. I don't know.
Go ahead. Listen. Just listen. Microsoft got a service provider using Linux on its servers to sign a patent protection deal. So Microsoft, believe it or not, we got to go back and remind people that Microsoft somehow indemnifies people over Linux. I've never understood quite how they got this deal.
Oh, man.
Would you explain this to me? Is this something they just decided to do?
Leo, did you ever have a bully take your lunch money? It's really the same system, but applied to software patents.
It is.
Yeah.
But the weirdest thing is that the world's biggest closed source proprietary software company apparently for somehow is licensing the world's biggest open source operating system to people, even though I had nothing to do with it. I'm confused.
And so, if next year is the year of desktop Linux, the big winner
it's Microsoft.
is actually going to be Microsoft.
Well, we already know Microsoft makes $5 or something like that per Android phone sold. It's good business.
Yes. To quote my friend, whose name shall go nameless, I guess, that's how they get you.
That's how they get you. That's a good quote. Yeah, it's a profit deal. So
you're going to pay us, and we're not going to beat you up.
So this company, Amdocs, they provide Linux boxes that you use in their data centers, kind of like Amazon does, like Azure does.
Except they do what they do is even more interesting. They have a data center. They run customer service software, billing software, and the people who are their customers are the big telcos like AT&T.
Now I'm liking this even more.
This is getting even more juicy, right?
Yeah.
So like AT&T and O2 and like a lot of really big telcos are using their data center for mobile billing, right? So Microsoft convinced them somehow. We don't know how these patent deals work. The details of these are not public. So Microsoft shows you something as a company using Linux or licensing Linux. We don't know what they're showing you, and then you decide, is this infringing on Microsoft patents or not? And if you think it is, then you pay. Basically,
it's like a roulette wheel.
It is kind of, yeah. I'm oversimplifying this, obviously.
How much are you going to pay today?
Yeah.
Come on, Red.
And I know from court cases that they don't show you code, that they don't even kind of really mention. It's all kind of inferred.
Do you think someone looks in a briefcase, like they kind of open the briefcase in front of you and you look in it and you're like, yeah, I'll just pay.
Yeah. Well,
it's a picture of your daughter being dropped off at school or something, or like some kind of like mob type thing.
Stephen Von Nichols, one of the Linux and open source guys at ZDNet, says it's patent FUD.
Yeah, well, it's also patent fun because they're making a lot of money from it.
Yeah.
And
we don't know, is it FUD or isn't it FUD? I mean, obviously Microsoft is showing these people something that they seem to believe has monetary value because they're paying Microsoft.
Lots of companies are doing it.
Right. So I don't think we can say for sure it's FUD. We can say, it's interesting Microsoft won't go public with the details, but I don't think we can say it isn't a case of infringement or that it is.
This is irony alert. There are more companies. I'm sorry, Microsoft is probably making more money on Linux and more money on Android than are the companies that are actually selling these products to customers. It is rather amazing.
So Microsoft told Fortune magazine about 5 years ago that Linux and other open source code violates 235 Microsoft patents.
Yes.
Linus Torvalds' response to this at that time was, it's certainly more likely that Microsoft violates our patents than Linux violates their patents.
Well, who's suing who?
Yeah. He says basic operating system theory was pretty much done by the end of the 1960s. So it's not, and Microsoft does not name the patents. They've never told anybody what those 235 patents are. Right. They've just said, well, we hire lawyers by the bushel. How would you like to go to court? People say.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, to me, what was made this story this week really interesting is lately all the deals we've been hearing about are Microsoft getting companies who sell Android or Chrome OS devices to license the patents and to pay them. This time, this is almost like a Linux customer is paying them. And they've really shied away from going after the customers up till now.
Arguably a big one, though, I guess, in a way, right? Not an individual. They're obviously
not some
reselling
guy,
Linux-based
not
services.
Stephen Von Nichols. Yeah, they didn't go to Stephen
No, not
Von
yet,
Nichols.
but they should go after him, by the way. I think I think the rationale here is that this is the type of customer, if you're going to be suing over Linux, this is the type that you would go after, right? Because they're a hoster, essentially. Is that, it's like a distributed Linux.
It is. And so what we don't know, too, and I've had different tips on this, the way Microsoft's press release was worded made you think these guys are running Linux on their servers in their data center. The way some of the tips have come in I've gotten about this say, I think Microsoft's running Windows on these servers with Linux as the guest. So that gets
in a Hyper-V type thing.
A Hyper-V type
That makes sense. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
That opens it up to a lot of people who are doing that, right? Like that's going to become really prevalent going forward with Hyper-V. So,
well, they're running out of Android licensees to sue, and so I think they're kind of turning to the next lowest hanging fruit, which is probably these guys.
Yeah, somebody on Twitter says, do you guys know the only other vendor who indemnifies customers for Linux is Oracle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. If I were Linus Torvalds, I would just weep.
Well, by the way, as I always do, I'll look at this in kind of a more of a glass half full way and say this is in some ways the ultimate success of his creation, right? That the largest software company on earth is obviously scared to death of this thing and is doing everything within their legal might. Right,
Paul. It's like the kid.
Probably.
It's like the kid who got his lunch stolen, saying, "Well, Mom must make really good sandwiches. That's half full." Man, that must have been a good lunch. Oh Lord, Lordy. It just feels wrong. That's all.
It's a win-win, Leo.
It's a win-win. Win. Speaking of stupid courts, let's talk about the European Union. If there's, I'll leave this one to Paul. Paul's good at the.
I love the EU. I love how crazy they are.
The righteous indignation.
Seriously, they're nuts. They're just. Crazy.
Oh, I love this. Brick Engraver in our chat room says, "Hey, give me a break. They wouldn't be paying if it weren't real."
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. There's a man who believes in truth, justice, and the American way.
I pay for.
They're
a
showing
Netflix
him something that's
streaming
scaring him.
subscription,
They're showing him a bag of lawyers.
Yeah.
That's what they're showing them.
That is what they're showing. Yeah, right. It's called shock and awe.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
You just the calculation the company is making, it's simple. Is it going to cost us more to fight this, even if we win?
Yeah.
Or is it going to cost us more just to license it and have Microsoft go away? And what Microsoft does is a little back of envelope calculation, and they make sure that it costs just a little bit less to license it.
Sure.
Let's see. Multiply 100 lawyers, $350 an hour, 1,000 hours. That number, now let's just subtract 10%. That's how much we want.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm a cynic. I could be a cynic.
I don't know how anyone could cover any one topic for any amount of time and not be cynical.
I know. You know what? That's what it is.
The more you learn, right?
We're worn out tech journalists. Bring in the young people.
There's no.
We need
the
some
world is not
wide-eyed
going to take an
optimists.
idealistic bent 70 years into it. Like it just gets worse.
You're right. Once you've hit 35, you realize we're screwed.
It's a downward spiral, Leo.
Yeah, that's true. We need
from my opinion, the big difference between the EU and the DOJ in the United States, or the EC, I guess we call them the European Commission, is that in the United States we tend to protect consumers. That's the point of antitrust. It's to protect the people.
Right.
And in Europe, it seems that the point of it is to protect competition.
Ah.
It's to keep competition fair.
Well, that's not that. Is that bad?
I don't know, because it's a very different thing. For example, this isn't in the show notes, but in the Apple publisher book thing that's going on with the DOJ, a lot of people saying, but those guys are fighting Amazon, and Amazon had an overwhelming market share, and you don't want a monopoly, but in the United States, a monopoly is not illegal. It's how you get the monopoly that is the problem, and what you do with monopoly power once you have it. You might make the argument that in Europe that case might not have happened because Europe probably would have looked at that and said, these guys got together and they screwed over the monopoly. That's fine. That's what we're trying to do. We want competition. It's just a different way of looking at it. That said, Microsoft has spent the past decade getting beaten up by the EU. In fact, as recently as last week, you may recall, there were 2 EU-related stories about Microsoft, one involving they're investigating Windows 8, no surprise there, and the other one involving the hilarity around that feature that had to be in Windows 7 that they silently removed and nobody supposedly noticed for a year and a half, the browser ballot box that they're now going to have to pay a big fine over probably and put back. So, right. So now we have like this big monopoly to be in the online world in Google, and the EU is investigating them for all kinds of different things, and they immediately offer them a settlement. Right? It's like the first thing they did. They said, "Look, if you just change these things and you come back with something good, we'll let you settle. You won't have to go through this awful thing that Microsoft did." And Google actually came back and said, "Okay, how does this sound?" We don't know what those details are, but apparently they met all of the requirements, and now they're going to talk, and they probably will settle within a few months. It's very interesting to me how different that is, and I sort of understand from the Microsoft perspective how skewed and one-sided that must feel. But anyone who's a parent will tell you that the first one you're really strict with, and then the second kid you're like, climb the tree. I don't care anymore. It's almost like you get just by getting lackadaisical.
You're beaten down, basically.
Yeah, you're done. You're just done. And I think that's what this is. I mean, they are. What they're saying is, this is an online world. It's faster moving. We got to get going on this. And I'm certainly there's some truth to that. But meanwhile, they're over here. They still have their left hand smacking Microsoft around while they're doing it. Right. It's amazing to me how different it is. Very interesting.
It's a brave new world. In the old world, there would be there's an opera in this. I think a modern opera.
About the tech companies.
About
antitrust.
Antitrust, EU. Great. Be really good. Really boring. Interesting. There's a new lobbying group. There's a new lobbying group in town. And this time he means business. Charles Bronson is
the lobbyist.
The lobbyist.
The lobbyist too, the quickening.
This is interesting because it's Google, eBay, Amazon, and Facebook all together doing this. That's kind of intriguing. What's the story, Mary Jo?
Internet companies who feel that they could get a little more love and understanding in Washington if they understood their issues better.
The Internet Association, they're calling this.
Yes, the Internet Association. They want to educate lawmakers about the impact of the Internet in their congressional districts.
Actually, this is appropriate because I have learned from talking to congressional aides and such that when bills are written, members of Congress and their staff do not have the time often or the expertise to write these bills properly. Look at all the Internet crap that they've been foisting on us over the last few years. So often what they'll do, these bills are very frequently written by lobbying groups. The staff will go to them and say, well, what should the language be in your view? And maybe they'll reconcile opposing views. But if you're not there playing the game, you don't have a voice, period. And there's plenty of people the competition is the telcos. So the telcos are there sitting there saying, we'll write some rules about the Internet. We make all the money, for instance.
Yeah, how does that rule sound?
So if you don't have a presence, and traditionally, Microsoft, I think, has been pretty good about participating in D.C. politics. They're an older company, but Google, they just got in the game. I don't know what Facebook's position is. Amazon and eBay, I don't know about that either. So I think that this is how it's done. You may not like it.
Yeah.
So when they say educate lawmakers, what they really mean is write some bills.
Yeah. They're going to talk about privacy, cybersecurity, sales tax rates for Internet companies. Yep. Yeah. They want to lobby for all that stuff. The ZDNet story on this says Google spent $3.9 million in lobbying between April and June of this year. So they're starting to get how this works.
That's
and Facebook,
a lot.
though, Facebook only spent $960,000 in the same period. So they need to learn how this game is played, I think.
It's almost like Google took Eric Schmidt, who I think is the guy in Washington now, took Mark under his wing and said, "Let me show you how it's played, how the game's played."
I think these companies all start off very idealistic,
They
though,
do.
right? And then they get beaten up a little bit, and they realize, okay, we got to do this stupid thing. And
nobody wants to do it.
Yeah, Microsoft's antitrust case in the U.S. was the jumpstart of them working with lobbyists in Washington. And these guys, it's not as dramatic, but same thing. You get bumped around on a couple of things, and you realize, we have to be playing this game. So
I've been reading Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, which was written in the 50s, I think. And, it's this fantasy about how a true, good, and fearless person who's selfish will build everything, and everybody else is whiny and lazy and useless. And, Reardon Steel and Taggart Railroads don't want to have a man in Washington, but doggone it, they have to. And this was written in the 40s and the 50s. Doggone it, they have to. And their man in Washington is a complete weasel who's, a traitor, essentially. But this game has been played this way for 60 years at least, probably for hundreds of years. Probably the guy who got the belt buckle concession in the Civil War had a lobbyist.
The belt buckle concession.
Oh, big money in the belt buckle concession.
You'd be better off making leg saws in the Civil War.
Yeah, well, that was good too. It was that or leg saws, one or the other. Little history lesson there. From Paul and Leo.
Leo, the way we're going to end our days is sitting on a porch.
Yeah, it's all sucks.
Planning about technology.
I want to do that. That's a new show.
The new virtual reality? It sucks.
My next. Okay, when this studio wears out, which it will in about a month because it's really getting raggedy. It's a 1-year-old that's raggedy.
Those brick things are not. They're only like this thick, Leo. I don't know how you're going to.
It's called veneer. So
it's like
we can't take them with us.
One twister.
I've figured it out, though. The next set, I'm just going to tear everything out. I'm going to build a back porch. It's going to look like frickin' hee-haw. And you and me and Dvorak, we're going to have a checkerboard on a barrel. We're going to have a pot-bellied stove and rocking chairs and maybe an old hound dog. And we're going to sit there going, Microsoft's at it again. Did you see that?
Dvorak will be hogging the quilt.
Yes. Give me that quilt.
I can see it.
Get off my lawn. All right, let's get to our picks. And, I'm not kidding. That show's not far off. I think we may be doing that. It'd be like you have
to move to Miami or something, though. It's going to have to be someplace.
It could be a set, like a hee-haw set. We'll get a cornfield. Mary Jo could pop up with jokes and pop down.
Nice. Thanks.
It's really like Statler and Waldorf is exactly what it is. We're sitting.
There
you go. Our tip of the week. Let's start with you, Paul Thurrott.
I've been kind of obsessed about SkyDrive lately. This is kind of a combo tip and pick, I guess, similar to last week, where I spent all this time in the past, building servers, like actual Windows Server servers, Windows Home Server more recently, where I always sort of imagined that local storage was going to be the answer to all my problems. And I'm starting to – no, I know it sounds crazy.
You're crazy, Paul Thurrott.
Storage. You
More
needed
storage.
And I know that the standard complaint about cloud computing is that not everyone has pervasive or great connections or inexpensive or free connections, and that if you put everything in the cloud, you might not always be able to get it. But it's interesting how these things get solved, and the way they get solved in many ways is through this notion of syncing. And that you have basically roaming for your data, for your settings and for all kinds of things. And I think as this stuff matures, more and more and more of our stuff is just going to be synced in this fashion. It's going to be very elegant and very seamless. And the Microsoft solution for this is all based around SkyDrive, which is ironic in some ways because, 6 months ago, a year ago, certainly, SkyDrive was the service that everyone had access to for free and nobody used. And by making a couple of very simple changes, Microsoft has turned SkyDrive into something that's not just central to their own strategy, which of course it is, but also I think central to our own strategies as users and how we're going to store our data and access that stuff going forward. And so I've written some articles recently. I'll be writing some more in the future about the ways in which we can organize our data in ways that are very efficient and so forth. And part of that conversation we had earlier about Windows 8, where you could blow away a computer and come back. Obviously, you could do this bit in Windows 7 too, but one of the first things I do now on a new install of Windows is install the SkyDrive app and get everything kind of synced down. And, we can kind of argue about the details of it because, obviously there are capabilities that people will, if they use Live Mesh, and I don't think very many did, but for those of us who did, and I did, certainly SkyDrive is simpler and thus missing some features from Live Mesh. But to me, it's a very elegant and simple solution, and it works really well. And on the Mac side, if you guys, you probably use Dropbox for this kind of thing, it's basically the same theory, except in this case, it's all coming from one company. And so there are apps now in beta form for Windows, for the desktop. Windows 8 comes with a SkyDrive Metro app, but there are also mobile apps on Windows Phone, iOS, and soon on Android. And it's basically just become the place to put stuff, and it's one of those overthinking things, like instead of, and I still have terabytes of stuff sitting in storage, sitting
therein lies the problem, right?
Well, it's stupid. But, in years past, I do this home swap every year, right? So the first year that we went to France, I brought whatever the biggest USB 2 external hard drive you could bring, and I basically replicated all of the stuff that was on my server at the time, and I brought it to France like a goon, because that's kind of what you had to do. And this year, I actually sat down and thought about it, because there are things you kind of have to do. My kids, we bring a hard drive that has movies on it for the kids, that kind of thing. But, really, the truth is we're probably never going to even use that. I'm not bringing anything. I mean, I'm bringing my laptops, a couple of laptops, so I can work, and my kids are bringing their machines. But I'm not really doing a lot of – I didn't worry about that. It's backed up to the cloud. My server is accessible from the internet. The important stuff is already synced through SkyDrive. Done. Right. I'm not really – I'm not overthinking it, It's interesting, and it's just a big change. And so I guess the pick is just to get those apps – based on whatever device types you have, and really spend some time looking at ways that you can be efficient using SkyDrive. And like I said, I've written some articles about that, which are linked to in the show notes, but there'll be some more coming in the weeks ahead too. And two, I should say, looking forward, looking into the future, SkyDrive 2 is going to be changing. We know from Joe Belfiore's leaked video about Windows Phone 8 that they're going to support music explicitly, and so you can put your music collection or parts of it into SkyDrive and then access that from any device using SkyDrive, that kind of stuff. And so more to come. But
it's really not so much a question of whether to do this, is which service to use, right?
Yeah, and I think for Windows users, if for people who are invested in Windows and Office in particular, and I could make a case too. I use Hotmail for my email, and happen to love it. This stuff all integrates perfectly together. And so one of the little things, somebody asked me if there was a way to, like a you send it type service recently for Hotmail, or rather for SkyDrive. And actually there is if you use Hotmail. And so if you try to send an attachment through Hotmail that is over 25 gigabytes, it will ask you if you would like to just put it on SkyDrive and have it sent to them that way. And it's just automatic.
Right.
It's very nice. So a lot of nice integration through that stuff. So I think for people who use Windows, and then of course the related Microsoft products and services, Office especially, but also Hotmail and some other things. And in the future, the Xbox. We're going to be accessing our music and video collections and other things from SkyDrive using an Xbox in the future as well. It's central to everything that's going on in the Microsoft ecosystem for consumers.
Well, do we know or do we not know if music and video storage in SkyDrive is going to happen with Windows Phone 8, like that time frame, or we don't know that?
Yeah,
for sure?
So we do know that music is going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know about video. Video, obviously, video is big.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I'm not sure explicitly. We know it because Joe Belfiore mentioned it in that leaked video, and so one of the articles I wrote recently, I quoted exactly what he said, and it is exactly what you think it is. The ability to not just store, because you could store music there now, it just wouldn't understand it. If you use Windows Phone today, you could go into the Pictures hub, and every folder that you have registered as a picture folder in SkyDrive shows up automatically. The music and video app presumably will work exactly in the same way for music, right? It's just not enabled today. There's no way to tell SkyDrive this is a folder of music, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I'm maybe more all in at Google or Amazon, or you mentioned Dropbox. But the integration of I think you're absolutely right. If you're using Office and Windows,
it's just there.
It's just there. You might as well just use it.
It's seamless. I mean,
and this is where Apple has stumbled, by the way. Maybe they won't. Maybe Mountain Lion will change that. But iCloud is not in the same way. It is integrated, but it's not required.
It would be hard for them to do this.
They should. They've got almost all the pieces.
It's somewhat more amazing to me that Microsoft did it only because they were so much further behind.
They got up
6 or 9 months ago. They really did. And the way I set up a system now is one of the like I said, I sync with SkyDrive immediately, and then I changed the libraries in Windows 8 so that they point to these locations in the SkyDrive folder hierarchy. I don't use any of the local documents folders or music folders. It all goes into, it's all SkyDrive.
Right.
It works really, really well.
Intriguing.
Yes.
An intriguing use. I agree with you. I think it's a horse race at this point. Where I think Microsoft had a huge advantage that they understand the cloud, they understand networking so much better with their experience in enterprise and middleware and Apple's just not been able to. MobileMe was a disaster. iCloud is only now starting to catch up.
But
they did. Where they did the right thing? Where they're good is
was
content.
The right idea. With what?
With content, because iTunes Match is way ahead of anything Microsoft or even Google or Amazon are doing. I think.
Well, I think it's better only because you have to pay for it, but it's better because what they have in the cloud, you get that instead of having to upload your own stuff. Right. And it's not like a time element. It's more of you get a higher quality version of the same stuff. I think one of the smartest things you could do with iTunes Match would be to put everything in the cloud and then go to a different computer and download all of it. Because instead of copying it from the other computer, because you get the higher quality versions of the sites. Yeah.
In fact, I've done that. I didn't even go to another computer. I deleted everything and then downloaded everything.
Just downloaded it, yeah.
But I have to say, this Nexus 7 is a good example. People are saying, well, it's only 8 or 16 gigs. But what Google understands is, that's because you're not storing anything on it.
And actually, that's one thing Google and Amazon do that Apple doesn't, is you can actually stream, right? So you can stream as you download on the Apple stuff, but you actually have to download it to the device.
It ends up downloading it. It's not as smart about what it's doing.
Right. Right. Yep. It's funny because somewhere between all of these services is the perfect set of capabilities. They all do something a little bit better than the others.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's got it. That's what I'm saying. It's a horse race, and nobody's got an obvious lead.
But it depends on what you're doing.
Microsoft's the closest, I think.
Well, for those billion plus people that are using Windows PCs and Office and all that stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't help me because I'm more Mac.
SkyDrive.
Right.
Yeah. So on the Mac side, I think you could make a case for Dropbox, for documents, maybe the Google stuff, Google Drive. You could make a case for any of those services for the music.
Right.
Apple would be the obvious place to buy content like TV shows and movies if that's what you want to do, because they have a good deal where you can store that stuff up in the cloud now. So this
does get to your software pick, because there are clients for iOS and Macintosh for SkyDrive.
That's right. Yep.
For everything, actually.
Everything except for Android. I don't think there's one for Android yet, but obviously that's coming.
Sure. So that's your software pick?
Yes.
Okay.
I kind of rolled it in. Sorry.
It's all in one piece, all of one. That means it's time for Mary Jo's Enterprise Pick of the Week.
Yeah. So I was thinking, we talked a lot about Office 2013, the new Office last time, but we didn't really talk about the servers that also are getting updated. And so I picked one of them for the Enterprise Pick of the Week. I picked Exchange Server 2013. And this is Microsoft's next version of Exchange. And I've been looking through posts of people who've been downloading it and testing it. And pretty much people are saying, it's not a revolutionary update of Exchange, but it is a very good evolutionary update. And a couple of the features that I thought were pretty interesting is offline support. One of them is offline support is coming to Office Web App. So that's pretty interesting. Office Web App is, I think, if I'm explaining this right, the new name for Outlook Web Access. Is that right, Paul? Do you know? They change the name on that so often.
Outlook Web App is the new version of Outlook Web Access.
Yes.
Is that what you said? Yeah, that is correct.
Well, she didn't use the word Outlook in the first thing, though. You're saying that
Well, no. So in other words, there's something called Office Web Apps.
Office Web Apps.
Which is not technically Outlook.
Oh, you meant Outlook. I get it. Okay.
Office Outlook. It's another O.
The problem is Office Web Apps becomes OWA, and we used to think of Outlook Web App as OWA.
OWA is MOA. OWA is MOA.
Yeah. There's too many OWAs.
OWA.
But yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, offline support in OA, the current OA. What else? Outlook Web App gives you a choice of 3 UI layouts, so you could pick for desktop, slate, or phone. What else? 8 terabyte disk support now for Exchange. New data loss prevention capabilities, which are a way to control sensitive data. That's another new capability. Replacement of the Exchange Management Console with a web-based Exchange Administrative Center. So there's like a lot of kind of incremental, nice updates that people are finding as they're testing the public beta of the new Exchange. So if you haven't tried it, it's out there and you can try it. Anyone can download it and try it.
Cool.
Have you found the communication on Exchange Server 2013 to be kind of quiet?
Yes, very quiet.
What's that
kind
mean?
of non-existent almost.
What do you mean quiet? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, they're not really. I don't see any big high-profile touting heroes.
No.
All the new stuff kind of.
You know why?
communicates.
I think this is my tin hat theory on this.
Yeah.
If you look, they're not promoting any of their servers right now, which is what they used to do. They'd be like, oh, here's all the great, awesome stuff in the new Exchange or the new Link or the new SharePoint. And they're doing a very muted version of that because they want people to go to the cloud.
Yeah,
They don't want
so
to talk up on premises, right? So
I look at this
think
stuff
that's
almost
why.
like the last version of Small Business Server, where they kind of throw it out there because they have customers that they want to upgrade. But maybe we don't do this for too much longer, you know?
Yeah, though we don't have a cutoff date, so no Exchange customer should panic that this is the last one. We don't know that for a fact. Nobody panic.
I'm panicking. You said the word panic, and I panicked. I didn't think about panicking until you mentioned it.
Now you're panicking.
Today on The Verge, Microsoft cancels Exchange Server.
No more Exchange. I can see the headlines. Yeah. Mary Jo and Paul said Exchange is dead.
Paul quoted a source close to Microsoft who told him that
That's what could happen is this feedback loop between you two, back and forth and back and forth. It's a game
We
of
have to be clear
telephone.
when we're joking.
Just joking. You can explain that to Topolsky tonight.
I will.
Codename pick of the week. I like this one. This is good. I think all code names should be like this.
I know. I couldn't remember if I did this one before.
No, I don't think
was
so,
like having
no.
I was having some tech Alzheimer's, as Paul accused me of this week.
right.
I'm going to be on your porch with you and Dvorak. And Paul.
Good.
Yeah, this is the codename of the week is Experiment 19.
Ooh. It sounds like, doesn't it sound like VAT 19? Like it might be a liquor?
A liquor? Yeah, maybe it's a beer.
It's a beer. Experiment 19.
Yeah.
It does sound like a beer.
Yeah.
It's not, though. Experiment 19 was a Microsoft research project that was very, very hush-hush, very hidden. And now they're starting to talk about it because it involved their work around bringing Windows and Windows Phone to ARM. So when they were doing this dated back like 5 years ago. And at the time, nobody would talk about what was going on because they didn't want to talk about yet what they were doing with ARM. But there was a team inside Microsoft Research who were working on proving that if you took out like the Windows embedded compact kernel from phone and you replaced it with a Windows NT kernel, that you would get better performance. So they were doing all this kind of skunkwork stuff around graphics processing, around, what would be better if we could switch out the whole core with the core that has all the things that Windows has. They also, it seems, helped with some of the work Microsoft did around bringing Windows RT, the Windows on ARM, to that platform as well. So it was a pretty cool and very quiet team. I had a little bit about it a few years back, but now they're talking publicly because I think they want the credit for the work they did to help bring Windows to ARM. So that's what Experiment 19 is, if you ever hear about that.
And there you have it. Experiment 19.
We may look back in 2 years and we will be in an ARM world, I really do think that this is
Intel's not going to give up without a fight.
No, it's not about giving up. It's just about where things are going. Actually, okay, maybe I should change it a little bit. I think the Intel SoC stuff will still be a big deal. But I really do feel like what Microsoft wants to do is cut off a lot of this legacy stuff and basically start over. And that RT is that clean, fresh, new car smell thing that they want.
A clean, fresh scent of RT. Paul Thurrott is at the SuperSite for Windows, winsupersite.com. He's also an analyst for Penton Media, the author of Windows 8 Secrets, soon Windows Phone Secrets, any minute now. No, vice versa. Windows Phone Secrets, soon Windows 8 Secrets, any minute now. We'll fix that in post, too. And you can read him every day, every minute. at the SuperSite for Windows. Mary Jo Foley. Read her at allaboutmicrosoft.com and watch her. I know they don't do it live, but I think the show comes out tonight. Or you're doing it tonight, and it'll be out later.
Yes.
Okay.
When will then be now?
Then will be now later tonight.
Yes.
It's
7 p.m. tonight. If you're in New York, come on by.
Oh, so they have a live audience, too.
Yes, live audience.
Wow.
So we need to pack it with some Windows fans.
Yeah,
people, so
we want cheering. So contact The Verge, I guess, if you want tickets. I'm sure they have some mechanism for that. Jimmy Fallon, Joshua Topolsky be hosting on The Verge with his special guest, Mary Jo Foley. Thank you, guys. Always fun. We do Windows Weekly on Thursdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. No, I'm sorry, 2000 UTC on twit.tv. You can watch live, and it's fun to watch live. You might even get your name on the show if you say something wacky in the chat room. They're such fun people. And if you
I never watched this.
Don't look in the chat room. Whatever you do, don't look in the chat room. You can also
It's like the Hypnotoad. I get lost.
Ooh, can I call in The Verge live? Can I call in? That'd be fun. I'll call in.
That would be really fun if you did.
I was Mary Jo Foley's second grade teacher.
I should have my mom calling.
Even then, she spent a lot of time looking out the windows. You can also get on-demand versions, audio and video, and I think our HD, if not this week, will be next week, versions of this show as well, so you can watch. I found out you can do this on the TiVo. If you want to watch us on the TiVo, you can all of our shows. I didn't know this are on somehow in some interesting way.
I love that you call it the TiVo.
The TiVo, yeah. It's not the internet; it's the TiVo.
So what the kids are calling it these days?
Kids call it the TiVo.
The TiVo.
Jennifer Ruggiero sent me instructions because I don't have a TiVo. I have to read my messages to find the exact instructions. She wrote them out for me. We've also posted them on our social media site. Find TV, movies, and videos. Browse web videos. Video podcasts, technology, Windows Weekly. Then, when you find it, which you should at that point, get a season pass. We don't mind if you do that, and then you'll always have it on your TiVo. Wouldn't that be fun? And I talked to Rob Greenlee, and he's going to hook us up with the Xbox folks, because I really want an app for us on the Xbox.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's really what we should have. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.
The weirdest thing about the Xbox is, for all as powerful as it is, it's a single tasking wonder. It does one thing at a time, and that's it.
It's got like 3 CPUs, and
I know, but it can
powerful.
do one thing.
Yeah.
That's all it can do. If you're playing Call of Duty and it says, "Hey, there are new maps available for download. Would you like to get them?" You say yes, and you go and you click, "I want to download them." You have to leave the game to download
and watch them download.
But you have to leave the game first.
I think that's how it should be.
720.
That's how you get good responsiveness. You don't want.
That's actually one of the big features of the next one is they're going to fix that. But it is amazing. I mean, and as you navigate around the apps in the 360, you'll see this because they'll always say, "Are you sure you want to leave?" And then you leave. It's like, and it kind of goes back to the OS. It's like in and out. It's like running DOS.
Yeah. Well,
it is kind of old fashioned.
Yeah. I don't think that's such a bad thing. You can get used to that. Anyway,
Thurrott quoted, "Xbox is like DOS."
Yeah. Jeez. I got to
Headlines at 5.
I'm a little overtired. I should just shut up.
So, have the Frenchies arrived?
No, my wife is picking them up now. I'm going to call her once we get off of here and find out where they're at. But
not only are you giving them your house, but you're actually picking them up at the airport. You are a nice host.
We are a full service home swapper.
Full service home swapper. That sounds kinky.
Yep. I know. As I said that.
I just sent my wife over to the French people. We're a full service home swapper. Yep. Have some cheese there for them.
It's not just the home we're swapping, Leo.
And when do you leave tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
How fun.
We're flying through London on the first day of the Olympics. Do you think we're going to have any problems?
No. Heathrow's a nightmare when there's no one there.
I know. I don't have any worries, Leo. It's going to be fine.
There's also a strike, I think.
No, actually, they called it off.
Thank God. Okay.
I have been following that.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Paul, you did this last time. You flew to Holland and then Sweden.
Actually, you know what I did this week, Leo, is I replaced my home server with Windows Server Essentials. I forgot to talk about that.
At the same time.
I'm starting to see a pattern here, Paul.
I can't leave enough alone.
Anyway, have a great time.
Next week, I'm going to be in St. Louis. We're going to do Windows Weekly from the .NET show in St. Louis.
Fun. Well, it's going to be fun. There'll be bandwidth in the Gateway City. There should be no problem there.
This is going to be a mess. She's going to be in St. Louis. I'll be in...
No, it's going to be an international festival.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out how we get a hold of you and all that, I guess.
We'll use the internets.
We'll use the... I'll Bing you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bing him.
Bing you later. Thank you, lady and gentlemen.
That would be a good Jimmy Fallon remix song.
Bing you later.
Bing me later, maybe, or something.
Hey there, maybe.